compliance, because you stipulated that what Senator Warren said was a first of a kind here, but he is not out of compliance. He has agreement that if he executes, will be in compliance. That's why he's properly before us. And I just want to make sure for the record that that is clear.
Yeah, very clear. Let me just say it. I'm going to reiterate what you just said, but I was writing it down myself. The Office of Government Ethics has entered into an agreement with Kevin Warsh that he has up until 90 days after confirmed to divest of his assets.
So the word, I mean, to non-attorneys here, I heard someone say he's before us out of compliance, and that's why I checked with the staff to be absolutely certain. He is properly before us. He will be in compliance if he executes agreement that addresses the concerns that have been presented by some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I just want to confirm for the record that that is in fact accurate.
So if we're doing a matter here of, is this parliamentary inquiry? Is that what this is?
I've made a parliamentary inquiry, so I'm not burning my time on something that I thought felt like a cheap shot to say he's out of compliance when in fact he's not.
Then I'd like to ask the other question, and that is, have we seen this agreement? Do we have any way to verify that, in fact, these sales will occur if we have no idea what's in them and no one has told? And let's remember the law for a minute. The Fed, unlike other parts of government, do not have a 90-day you can be out of compliance. Fed law is explicit that you cannot own any portion of a financial interest in a bank.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, excuse me for interrupting. Senator,
now I'm going to let the attorneys take over.
Are we going to all get extra time here?
No.
I'd like extra 3 minutes.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just, for the record, and the only reason I say
that was a parliamentary inquiry, so it doesn't count.
Yeah. But,
okay.
Mr. Chair, the reason I mentioned that is because you had stipulated it. I don't think you meant it this way, but you as a chair said that this is the first of a kind of someone being out of compliance. I don't think you meant that. I wanted to make sure it was clear for the record.
Well, let me just be very clear again. The career ethics professionals were the ones that sent Mr. Warsh's signed paperwork to this committee's chief clerk. They would not have done so if they did not come to an ethics agreement with Mr. Warsh. Mr. Kennedy, Senator Kennedy does raise a good point. We are going to stick to our timeline, and I appreciate you raising the point of how long an inquiry can go on, and that does not buy you more time unless, of course, we all decide we want more time. And then I would rule on that, and I would rule against it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Warsh, congratulations. You can't count this as a date with Jane, particularly this one. I think probably the first hearing was a little less acrimonious. I'm not going to ask you anything. You can take a break and get ready for the bludgeoning on the other side. They're going to beat you till you bleed, and then they're going to beat you for bleeding. I'm going to talk about what's preventing me from being in a position to vote for you until we've spent time together in my office. You have extraordinary credentials. They're impeccable. I think the way you're dealing with the ethics issue is strong. Problem I have is where we are right now. And I start by saying I loved your opening statement. I love your focus on the independence of the Fed. I love the idea of Fed independence with respect to achieving the dual mandate, but Fed transparency on so many other things that the Fed does that, frankly, we're all frustrated with, bank examination, supervision being some among them that I think we should have more insight into. Mr. Chair, I'd like to submit for the record 2 executive orders under President Trump, one in 2020 and one in 2025, talking about making federal architecture beautiful again, and focusing on trying to preserve the integrity of old buildings.
Without objection.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I will be submitting an analysis, but if we can go to slide 2 and turn it up right. Much has been made about the building project that has Chair Powell under investigation. I'm not going to get into the details except to say that I used to work for a firm that did audit and compliance, so I'm naturally wired to go back from the ground up and figure out what the deal is. Here's what I know. The Martin building has been conflated into this project to make it a $4 billion building. Even if you put the Martin building in, it's a $3 billion building. The reality is, what we're talking about is the Eccles building and the East building, for which, bring that up higher, Jack, you're a tall guy so people can see it. These are the overruns. And these overruns occurred in part because the cost of inputs went up 69% since the original estimate. Asbestos was identified. Remediation was required. Pylons had to be built underneath the building because turns out they used it as a landfill and they had a water table issue. There were a variety of reasons why this building went over budget. And as a matter of fact, if we put everybody in prison in federal government that had a budget go over, we'd have to reserve an area roughly the size of Texas for a penal colony because of the way government projects work. And the reality is the overage of inflation adjusted was about $730 million, the majority of which seems to be legitimate. Next slide. Not acceptable, unfortunate, but legitimate. Now, what I've really got a problem with, and we're talking about Fed independence. By the way, I think you're going to be independent. You have to be. You got to convince 11 other people to vote with you, at least a majority. It's a consensus organization. You try to get the majority to. Most of these votes are 11-1. So if anybody thinks the president can appoint somebody and you unilaterally can control things, you're going to be an unsuccessful chair if history is any guide, and you've served under some of the best. So I know you're going to do it right. The problem that I have here is that we had some U.S. attorney with a dream or assistant U.S. attorney thinking it would be cute to bring Chair Powell under an investigation just a few months before the position was going to be open. This happened this year. Normal course and speed. Here's how it works at the Fed. May the 15th, the term would have expired. We'd be having this hearing. You'd be getting confirmed. Custom also suggests that the sitting chair, even though he has 2 years left on his term, would have exited. But instead, we have somebody who thinks a building project that went over by about $700 million with a lot of what seemed to be justifications for it are holding up this whole process. It sounds like to me somebody over in the DOJ didn't even check with the boss. The boss said on the same night that I said I can't go forward until this bogus investigation is done with, said he didn't know anything about it. So we've got people in DOJ over in the D.C. circuit or the D.C. district doing these investigations. We have got to end this investigation. Big DOJ didn't know about it. The president didn't know about it. Let's get rid of this investigation so I can support your confirmation. Mr. Warsh, the only thing I've found the least bit odd about you is you've never watched an episode of Seinfeld. You've spent so much time at being a rock-solid economist that you're not even taking time away for a little laugh like that. I look forward to supporting your nomination, and I look forward to this investigation being taken down. If the chair wants to have all of our subcommittees start looking at capital expenditure projects for the agencies that we're overseeing, I think that's a great idea. And I'd like to be on a committee specifically drilling down on this analysis. If somebody can prove me wrong, I'd be happy to make a criminal referral. But I don't have the D.C. Circuit tell me a crime was committed when 7 members on this committee said it wasn't, including the chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Only one question. What is Seinfeld? Senator Van Hollen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Warsh, good to see you. Reviewing your record, I am concerned that your position on interest rates seems to shift with what's politically convenient rather than based on sound economic judgment. In the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, the worst recession since the Great Depression, with some of the worst unemployment in our lifetimes, you were a hawkish voice, expressing concern that the Fed might wait too long to raise rates. I think you got it wrong then, but now you seem to have swung 180 degrees in the opposite direction to embrace lower rates, a view that conveniently aligns with the president who nominated you. You've made this pivot even as today prices are too high. I think we all know that. Our economy works for families when prices are affordable and unemployment is low. That's why price stability is an important part of the Fed's mandate, right?
Senator, yes.
And the Fed uses its monetary policy tools for price stability and full employment. That's the job Congress gave to the Fed. Here's how Ben Bernanke described how the Fed uses those tools. He said, and I'm quoting, "Generally, if economic weakness is the primary concern, the Fed acts to reduce interest rates, which supports the economy. If the economy is overheating, the Fed can raise interest rates to constrain inflationary pressures," end of quote. So that's a textbook model of the Fed. Cutting rates supports the economy, but can lead to higher inflation, while raising rates helps to fight inflation, but can limit growth. Do you agree with Chairman Bernanke that that's generally how the Fed can use monetary policy to affect the economy?
Senator, I do agree generally with that proposition, but I'll note at a moment like this, the supply side of the economy is changing dramatically. So the core of what Chairman Bernanke said is a question about what's the economy's potential. As I said in my opening remarks, I think the economy's potential is growing quite quickly, and that makes the decision that you tee up to be a difficult one, and one that the Fed's going to have to dig deep in evaluating what's the right policy choice in the upcoming meetings.
Well, I want to push you a little bit on that in a moment, but right now the Fed has set its main interest rate at 3.5 to 3.7%. Last December, President Trump told the Wall Street Journal he wanted to cut rates to 1% and maybe lower than that by the end of this year. So just to better understand how you think about economics, in the economic model Bernanke laid out, let's say there's an economy with decent growth and no recession. If the central bank were to cut rates from 3.5 to 1% or lower, a massive cut, that would typically push prices up, right?
Senator, unlike many of my colleagues, past and present, I don't believe in forward guidance. I don't believe that I should be previewing for you what a future decision might be. I think it's essential that the Fed make decisions in the room.
Mr. Warsh, I'm not asking you what decision you would make. Obviously, that's going to be up to you. I'm asking you for the framework in which you think about these things. And it seems a pretty straightforward question about what would happen if we reduced interest rates by the end of this year to 1% or less. And under the Bernanke model, and I think almost every economist or most economists would say that that will drive up prices. And so that's what I'm asking you. Would you agree that that would likely drive up prices?
So, Senator, the Fed has two important monetary policy tools. One is interest rates, and the other is a balance sheet that we created in the 2008 financial crisis. Those tools should be working in concert, not at cross purposes. So it's hard for me to isolate one variable when we'd have to have a discussion on the other.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, let me just say this was a pretty clear question about the framework in which these decisions are made. I have heard you talk about how AI may change that calculation.
Yes.
I will just say, and I think you know this, I mean, I have this, the Financial Times pointed out the economists reject Kevin Warsh's claim that the AI boom will enable rate cuts. And I find it just implausible to suggest that by the end of this year, AI would produce such increases in productivity that it could reduce in a rate cut to below 1%, and you can't tell me that that would very likely increase prices.
So, Senator, can I say two things? First,
Senator,
sorry.
quickly.
Sorry. Monetary Policy Center works with long and variable lags. Quite famously, if the Fed were to make a decision today about the conduct of policy, it's likely to find its way to the real economy 6, 9, or 12 months later. So it's difficult to judge policy today for an immediate result. And that would be my only concern about the framing of your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In closing, this is what concerns me, is that your views now have sort of flipped to conform with where the President of the United States is, and that's been a concern many of us have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kennedy?
I want extra time, Mr. Chairman.
I know, sir. I know.
Consider these 5 minutes a parliamentary inquiry. Professor, what's a sock puppet?
I heard the reference from Senator Warren.
Yeah,
earlier.
what is it?
I'm not sure I know. I think
Okay.
it's that thing you stick your hand in.
Yeah, kind of like this.
Yes.
What's a human sock puppet? Isn't a human sock puppet somebody who'll do what somebody else tells them to do?
I think that's what the senator was trying to suggest. I think that was the innuendo.
Are you going to be the president's human sock puppet?
Senator, absolutely not.
Are you going to be anybody's human sock puppet?
No, I'm honored the president nominated me for the position, and I'll be an independent actor if confirmed as chairman of the Federal Reserve.
My friend Senator Warren, and she, as my friend, suggested that, I wrote it down, you will use your power, you might use your power to bail out your friends if they get in trouble, kind of like President Biden did with Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. She didn't say the last part, I just did. Are you going to do that?
No, Senator.
Okay. The ethics folks, they've cleared you, but they said you've got to sell some assets. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And these assets that you have, you can't just hold a yard sale, can you?
No, not for most of them, sir.
Okay, so it takes a reasonable period of time, right?
Yes, sir.
And you've promised to sell them, right?
I did.
And if you don't sell them, we'll know, and the ethics folks will know, right?
Yes, I'd be in violation of the ethics agreement if I refuse to sell them.
But you're going to sell them, right?
Yes, Senator, I will.
Okay. Can we agree that politicians have the right to offer you advice about what to do with interest rates?
Senator, we can agree, and it's not something that I would shy away from. I've heard many senators from this very committee in years past express strong views on interest rates.
Okay.
Humble central bankers should be listening and then making their own decisions.
But some politicians matter more than others. And generally speaking, presidents matter, their opinion matters more than, say, a senator. President Trump has offered his opinion about what you ought to do with interest rates. Is that right?